Africa is a continent of forgotten empires, where the sands cover kingdoms that once shook the ancient world. Beyond the pyramids of Egypt, the land that Hollywood loves to claim as the beginning and end of African greatness, lies another story. A kingdom that was just as powerful, just as influential, and at times, even the conqueror of mighty Egypt itself. This is the story of the Kingdom of Kush, the empire of the Black Pharaohs. Now, don't get it twisted, Kush is not that leafy thing you roll up in a paper. This Kush was an ancient powerhouse that made empires tremble. And while the Egyptians had their mummies and fancy eyeliner, the Kushites had muscle, strategy, and a royal swagger that stretched across the Nile. Our story begins around 2000 BC. In the land south of Egypt, in what we now call Sudan. Here, along the Nile's cataracts, rose a civilization that would be both Egypt's rival and its savior. Kush was not some small neighbor living in Egypt's shadow. It was a giant in its own right. When Egypt grew weak, Kush rose strong. And when Egypt thought itself supreme, Kush reminded them, "Big brother, you're not the only one with pyramids." And yes, about those pyramids, while Egypt had the famous ones, Kush built more pyramids than Egypt ever did. Over 200 of them, scattered in places like Meroë. So if we're keeping score, Egypt might have the biggest. But Kush said, "We've got the most." Quality versus quantity, the eternal argument. The Kingdom of Kush wasn't just about monuments. It was about power. It controlled trade between Central Africa and Egypt, gold, ivory, incense, exotic animals, all flowing through Kush. If Egypt wanted to flex, it needed Kushite resources. And Kush knew it. This wasn't just survival. This was strategy. The Kushites understood that controlling the flow of wealth meant controlling the narrative. And for centuries, they wrote themselves into history as Africa's guardians of the Nile. Think of them as the ancient gatekeepers. Like that bouncer at the club who won't let you in unless you've paid up, except here. The club was Egypt's survival. And the entrance fee was Kushite gold. But this is only the beginning. The story of Kush is not just about trade or pyramids. It's about pharaohs who wore the double crown of Egypt. Wars that shook the desert, queens who ruled with iron and fire. And a legacy that still lives, though hidden under centuries of erasure. Because when historians wrote the tale of the Nile, they focused on Egypt's shine and tried to dim Kush's light. But today, we light the torch again. This is the Kingdom of Kush, Africa's forgotten pharaohs, the rulers who stood tall when empires fell. And trust me, their story is about to flip everything you thought you knew about Nile Valley civilization. By 1500 BC, Egypt thought it had put Kush in its place. Pharaohs marched south, conquered Nubian lands, and claimed to control everything. But here's the thing about Kush, you can suppress it, but you can't kill it. Like a drumbeat in the desert, it always came back stronger. Egypt treated Kush like that annoying little cousin, stay in the corner. Don't touch my crown. But Kush was patient. Kush was watching. And Kush was plotting its return. That return came in the 8th century BC. Egypt had grown weak, divided, and corrupt. Its rulers squabbled over power, temples fought for wealth, and foreign invaders circled like vultures. And from the south, Kush saw its chance. A king named Pi rose from Napata, the Kushite capital. He was no mere warlord, he was a strategist, a religious reformer, and a visionary. He looked north at Egypt, fractured and bleeding, and declared, "Enough. The gods of the Nile demand order. And we, the Kushites, will bring it." Translation: Pi basically said, if y'all can't run Egypt properly, hand me the keys. Daddy's home. And so, with disciplined armies and divine conviction, Pi swept into Egypt. He didn't come as a destroyer, but as a restorer. His inscriptions, carved in stone, show a man who believed he was chosen to unite the Nile. He marched city after city, temple after temple. Egyptian rulers surrendered at his feet. And by the time he was done, the Kushite king had taken Egypt's double crown. The south had conquered the north. This moment marks the birth of the 25th dynasty. The era of the Black Pharaohs. Egyptian priests probably didn't know whether to bow or faint. Here were kings darker than the Nile mud itself, speaking with southern authority, saying, "Yes, we are Pharaoh now. Get used to it." Pi was followed by a line of Kushite rulers, Shabaka, Shabitku, Taharka. Each carried the weight of both Kush and Egypt, ruling a united Nile valley. Their reign wasn't short or minor. For nearly a century, Kushite pharaohs shaped Egypt's destiny. One of the greatest among them was Taharka, remembered in the Bible itself as the mighty king of Kush. He expanded borders, restored temples, and defended Egypt against the rising Assyrian Empire. His reign was marked by monumental building, temples, statues, pyramids, a golden age of Kushite power. Now imagine the scene, Assyrian messengers boasting, "Our empire is the strongest in the world." And Taharka, sitting on his throne in Memphis, sipping on date wine, replies, "Cute. Tell your king the Nile already has an owner." But greatness brings enemies. The Assyrians were relentless. By the 7th century BC, they invaded Egypt with brutal force. City after city fell, and the Kushite pharaohs were eventually driven back south. It was a bitter retreat, but not the end of Kush. While they lost Egypt, their dynasty left an imprint so deep that Egypt's story could never be told without them. The Black Pharaohs showed the world that power did not flow only from the north. For nearly a century, Kush ruled Egypt as equals, even superiors. They proved that Africa's heartland was not a periphery. It was the beating center of empire. And though the Assyrians thought they had crushed Kush, the kingdom was far from finished. Because back in Meroë, south of Napata, a new chapter was rising, one of iron, fire, and queens who would terrify Rome itself. Driven from Egypt, the Kushite kings returned south. Many would have faded into history, broken by defeat. But not Kush. No, like iron in the fire, it only grew harder. In the 6th century BC, Kush shifted its capital from Napata to Meroë, further down the Nile. And there, a new era was born. If Napata was the old-school traditional city, Meroë was the upgrade, the downtown. Think less dusty temples, more iron furnaces blazing day and night. Meroë was Africa's industrial hub before the word industry even existed. Indeed, archaeologists call Meroë the Birmingham of Africa. Its forges produced endless iron tools and weapons, fueling trade across the continent. Kushite merchants carried goods along the Nile, across the desert, and deep into sub-Saharan Africa. Meroë wasn't just rich, it was cultured. Its pyramids, smaller but steeper than Egypt's, dotted the landscape in their hundreds. Its writing system, the Meroitic script, remains undeciphered to this day, a language that teases us across time. It's like the ancestors left us a note saying, "Good luck cracking this code, future people." And so far, we've failed. But Meroë's true legends weren't only its kings. They were its queens. Known as Kandake, or Candace in Greek, these queens ruled as warriors, generals, and symbols of defiance. One Kandake in particular shook the world. In 24 BC, the Roman Empire under Augustus tried to extend its grip into Nubia. They expected easy victory. After all, they had just crushed Egypt and taken its wealth. What resistance could remain in the south? They had not met Kandake Amon Irenas. The Romans thought they were walking into a quick fight. Instead, they ran into the African queen who said, "Come if you dare. But you won't leave smiling." Amon Irenas was no ceremonial figure. She led her armies into war, striking Roman forts, cutting down soldiers, and even capturing statues of Augustus himself. The Kandake returned to Meroë with the emperor's image, and legend says she buried it beneath her temple stairs, forcing worshippers to step on Rome's pride with every visit. Now that's what you call a proper African clapback. Forget cancel culture, Amon Irenas invented step-on-your-enemy culture. For 3 long years, Rome and Kush fought. And though the empire was vast, it could not crush Meroë. In the end, Rome signed a peace treaty, one of the rare times in history when Rome agreed to terms as equals. The treaty declared Kush free, independent, and untaxed. Amon Irenas had done the impossible. She had humbled the most powerful empire on earth. Meroë thrived for centuries after. Its queens and kings ruled with iron and faith. Its culture blended African tradition with echoes of Egypt, but always on its own terms. Yet no empire lasts forever. By the 4th century AD, trade routes shifted, resources drained, and neighbors grew stronger. The once mighty forges of Meroë fell silent. The kingdom that had defied Pharaohs, Assyrians, and Rome itself slowly faded into shadow. But its memory remained. For every pyramid still rising from the sands of Sudan. For every tale of a Kandake who stood tall against the mightiest powers. For every fragment of Meroitic script whispering across time. Kush was never a footnote. It was a kingdom of builders, warriors, and dreamers, a star in Africa's long, proud history. 4 centuries. The sands of Sudan swallowed the memory of Kush. Its pyramids were buried. Its palaces erased, its writing lost. To the outside world, Egypt became the star of the Nile, while Kush, its rival and equal, was forgotten. It's almost like history said, "Let's give Egypt the spotlight," and pushed Kush off stage. Typical. But memory cannot be erased forever. In the 19th century, European explorers stumbled upon strange pyramids. In the Nubian desert, pyramids, smaller and steeper than those in Egypt, but numbering in the hundreds. They were shocked. They had not expected to find another civilization of such grandeur in Africa. Some, poisoned by racist beliefs, refused to believe Africans could have built them. Instead, they invented myths of lost races or outsiders. But the truth was simple. Kush was African. Its rulers were African. Its queens, kings, builders, and thinkers were African. This was Africa writing history with stone, iron, and blood. Today, archaeologists continue to piece together the story. Every temple fragment, every burial site, every hieroglyph carved in Meroitic script tells us more. Yet so much remains unknown. Who were all the Kandake Queens? What secrets lie hidden in the undeciphered texts? The Kingdom of Kush still guards its mysteries. It's like Kush is still whispering, "You want answers? Come and dig. Put in the work." But even with these mysteries, one truth is clear. Kush was no shadow of Egypt. It was no copy. It was a civilization that stood tall, that conquered, that created, that defined its own destiny. Its pyramids may be smaller, but they are countless. Its queens may be forgotten in Western textbooks, but they were warriors who humbled empires. Its legacy runs deep, not just in the sands of Nubia, but in the very idea of African greatness. The Kingdom of Kush reminds us of this. That Africa's history is not one of silence. It is one of voices, loud and proud, echoing through time. Voices of kings, queens, and nations who refuse to bow. And though the pyramids of Kush stand weathered, their stones broken, their spirit endures. A spirit that says, "We were here. We ruled. We dreamed. We endured." Kush, Africa's forgotten pharaohs, shall not be forgotten again. This is Ancestral Files. Subscribe.